Specifically, today we'll be talking about assertiveness. Now, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your assertiveness? Some people feel like when it comes to being assertive, they're afraid to really speak out or speak up. And there may be various reasons from this. At the root, people may not have learned how to be assertive in the household they grew up. You see, if they had a parent or a caregiver that was always taking up the space and would just come in and expect everything to be about them and expect everyone in the household to cater to them and expect everything to sort of revolve around them, and everyone had to change the way they were acting because they were there, and had to change the way they felt because it had to match how the caregiver was feeling. You may have learned an imbalanced association with assertiveness because that person took up so much space in the room. You may have had to make yourself small. Then later on in relationships, your skill becomes, I know how to make myself small so that you can have all the oxygen in the room. And that's not totally balanced. It's not totally healthy. On the inverse, you may have learned that in order to get any love in the household, because your parents were neglectful, you had to really assert yourself and elbow and fight for the space, in which case you may have developed aggressive tendencies when it comes to expressing yourself. As a result, you may have learned to step on other people's toes or climb on their backs or trample over others in order to get what you want. But that, of course, is not balanced either. And ultimately, it can lead to you really hurting other people, especially as you develop your own family. You could actually hurt your children. You could hurt your spouse as a result. So in order to be able to exist in this world properly, we have to be able to assert ourselves. But there's so many issues around this concept of being able to assert yourself, culture, gender, what's normal in those situations, and knowing when is the right time, and also just in general feeling afraid. Now, there really are a lot of reasons why people don't feel comfortable asserting themselves. Let's talk about what some of those reasons may be. Some people may hold back from asserting themselves because they feel like, well, hey, I've spoken up before, I've asserted myself before, and it didn't have a good result. It ended up getting me in a fight, or somebody got mad, or I didn't really get what I wanted in the end, or it was embarrassing. So as a result, today, I don't feel like asserting myself. Instead, I just rather let people have what they want, let them do what they want. And I tend to make myself small and keep my voice quiet as a result. For other people, they say that they don't assert themselves because they're really afraid of hurting someone else's feelings. And they're thinking, if I assert myself and I say what's on my mind, then people may get hurt. They may be sad. They may cry. Again, maybe there may have been experiences in the past where you've learned that asserting yourself is going to make someone else feel upset. Some people say, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to just say what's on my mind, because if I say what was on my mind, definitely some people are going to get hurt. So some people are afraid of being mean. For other people, it's a cultural thing. Hey, in our culture, you don't speak up to those who are older than you, or you don't speak up to your parents or to your family like that. So culture could be a main reason. Some people say, well, it's because it causes me anxiety. Just the idea of speaking up and saying what's on my mind or giving my opinion, it scares me to be, I hate all confrontation. I run from confrontation. I'm just a non-confrontational person. Or some people say, well, it makes me feel guilty. I feel bad. I would feel so guilty if I just told people exactly what was on my mind. So the key to understanding this concept of asserting yourself is being able to balance it in terms of your overall understanding of life. So the philosophy around asserting yourself is that asserting yourself is generally always going to be a good thing. What it is that we don't want to do is go to one extreme or the next. Because see, on one hand, we have being aggressive. So being assertive is not the same as being aggressive. If we're aggressive, that means that we're willing to go for and get what we want at the detriment of others. It means that we're willing to be mean, to be harsh. We do not care about others' feelings. We are trampling on other people. It's not advisable to be aggressive. Very rarely is it a proper situation to show aggression. That would be very rare. So your objective is not to show aggression, but it's to be assertive. So aggression is an extreme way of expressing yourself. On the other hand, you have the other extreme, which is being passive. You see, if you're a passive person, and every time you have a thought or an opinion, you let it go. You keep it to yourself. You're always being quiet when you should be speaking up and speaking out. You don't advocate for yourself. You don't advocate for others. You are passive. You do nothing. You say nothing. This is an extreme way of conducting yourself. To be passive all the time is not healthy. It's not any more healthy than it is to be aggressive. We should repudiate both passivity and aggressiveness. And we should go to find the proper balance right in the middle, which is assertiveness, the ability to speak your opinion in a way that does not hurt other people, but also does not miss the opportunity to advocate for yourself. Yes, assertiveness is the ability to advocate for your needs. Assertiveness is the ability to utilize your voice. Assertiveness is the ability to communicate to someone else what you're truly thinking or what you're truly feeling. It's good to be assertive. It is almost always good to be assertive. Not at all moments in time, but it's always a good quality to have. You should be able to describe yourself as an assertive person. It's a part of being healthy. One of the things we have to understand if we want to be assertive is where you stand in the hierarchy of people, right? Because when you feel like you're low on the totem pole, then it's kind of like, maybe I should just keep my mouth shut. So for instance, imagine you're you're invited to a big meeting with all of the bosses of your company, and you look around and you are the lowest ranked member in that company. And then they invited another tier of people, and those are the boss's bosses. And you realize, wow, in that situation, you're going to feel instinctually like this is not a good time to assert my opinion or assert my viewpoint. And you might be correct. It's good to read the room. The reality, though, is generally in life, you are not the lowest on the totem pole. Those are rare situations where there's an actual ranking. When a person thinks that they're ranked low, when they're actually just around their peers, they are experiencing a distorted way of viewing themselves. When a person thinks that they are ranked low, when they are actually among their peers, that is a cognitive distortion, meaning it's a lie. They're believing something about themselves that is not correct. So as a result, they're not asserting themselves, but by not asserting themselves, they are living a lie because they're not actually informing individuals what their thoughts and opinions are in a time where their thoughts and opinions do matter because they're among their peers. So it's important to differentiate and realize when it's proper to assert yourself And if you are actually among your peers, or you're in a relationship between two equals, then you need to speak up, whether you are a man or a woman, no matter what culture you come from, no matter what land you were born in. You need the tools. You need to learn how to speak up, how to assert yourself in order for the balance to be healthy. And we're not just talking about a balance of power, we're talking about the balance of everything: resources, attention, love, connection. The environment, the energy environment that you're living in cannot be balanced if you are not assertive, because people cannot read your mind. They do not know what you need, although they may be willing to give it to you, unless you assert yourself and speak up. That's in virtually any relationship. It doesn't matter if you just met the person today or if you've been married to the person for 32 years. You need to know how to properly assert yourself, to share your opinion, to express yourself. And to do that, you must view yourself as you really are, which is one whole human being, value of which is the exact same value of every other human being on earth. Think about that for a moment. You are a human being with the same value that every human being on earth has. So, how much should you be sharing your opinion? How much is your opinion worth? Well, let's do some math. If you're the same value as everyone else, then how much is your opinion worth in relation to everyone else's opinion? Let's see, carry the two. Are you arriving at the same conclusion I am? That your opinion is actually worth the same amount as every other person's opinion? Not more, not less, the same. If you are in a room full of your peers, then your opinion is a peer opinion. Your viewpoint is as valuable as anyone's viewpoint. It's necessary then to assert yourself, to advocate for your needs. That is probably why you were born with a voice or the ability to write or do sign language. All of these things we've developed. The ability to utilize language is something that we've developed so that we can communicate, in part to advocate for our own needs. So if you're in a relationship with another person, doesn't matter whether you met them today or 32 years ago, and you're in a room and you're having a conversation, generally speaking, a healthy conversation will be split mathematically, 50-50. That means they talk 50% of the time, you talk 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time you're listening. The other 50% of the time they're listening. Are there exceptions? Well, certainly. There will be times where it's time for you to listen more. But then there might be times then that it's time for them to listen more. But if you're in a relationship where they do all the talking and you're just expected to do all the listening, reassess if that is a healthy relationship or if it's actually a toxic one. And the same on the inverse. If you're in a relationship where you're doing all the talking and your assumption is, well, the person likes it that way because they don't ever talk. I mean, if I didn't talk, no one would talk. Reassess if you might be the toxic component in that relationship. It could be that that person hasn't learned healthy assertiveness. But generally, the right balance where you can avoid your worst nightmare of being seen as aggressive or overbearing or domineering is to recognize your actual worth and value in the room, which is if there's 2 people, then I'm 50%. If there's 3 people, then I'm 30%. If there's 4 people, then I'm 25%, right? You're assigning everyone equal value. So then you're making sure everybody's getting their shine, right? And you're giving equal listening attention to everyone when and where appropriate. And that means, though, you're going to have to speak up that 25% or that 30% or that 50%. You're going to have to speak. This can be or seem easier said than done, but you have to overcome the thinking that has been holding you back from being an assertive person, because you don't want to be a passive person. A passive person is not doing the world any favors. In fact, they owe the world. You've been holding back your opinion so much that it's sort of like you're in talk debt. Like you need to be speaking up more because the world needs to hear more of what it is you have to say. So if you're holding back out of fear of hurting someone's feelings, try to keep in mind that you actually end up hurting them more when they find out that you never expressed how you truly felt. You actually end up hurting people's feelings more when they find out that the entire time the representation they had of you and your feelings wasn't correct because you never spoke up. We should keep in mind that if we're holding back because we've had bad experiences in the past where we tried to speak up but it didn't work, if that's the case, then you shouldn't go to the grocery store anymore, because you've gone there before and tried to get some groceries and they were out of what you were looking for. And you shouldn't go to department stores anymore because you've gone there and they said they had a sale on something and then they were out of the item that was supposed to be on sale. You shouldn't drive a car because you've tried to operate certain cars before and they weren't working properly. But you're not going to give up going to grocery stores, department stores, and driving cars, are you? Of course not. Why? Because you need to live your life. Do you see the point? Just because you've had bad experiences being assertive in the past doesn't mean that's a good excuse to stop doing something that's going to help you to live your life. You need to live your life. You need to speak up and express yourself. If you're the type of person who holds back because it causes you anxiety, try to keep in mind that it's ultimately going to cause you more anxiety to have never expressed what it is that you know and what it is you're feeling to the person. Because if you're not expressing, like imagine you're on the highway and you've missed the exit, but you don't express or speak up that you missed the exit to avoid anxiety, your anxiety is going to get worse. It's going to build and build and build because you never spoke up to that person. And this is how we have individuals who end up ghosting their relationship and just hitting the road and running away and not telling people what it was or why it was or what they're feeling, because they lack that healthy assertiveness to just speak up several mile markers back and inform the other person what they're feeling and what it is they want to do. If you're holding back because of your culture, try to keep in mind that your culture is a beautiful tapestry of the past. It is not a roadmap to the future. Press on, move forward towards your future. Reach out for it, build your future, and bring your culture with you. If you hold back from being assertive because you feel guilty, and you're afraid that you're going to feel guilty if you say something and you hurt someone's feelings, well, the ultimate guilt is the guilt of living a lie. And if you're walking around holding back the truth from everyone, you are living a lie. So the key is to be balanced. We have to avoid extremes. We don't want to be passive. We don't want to be aggressive. We just want to assert ourselves. That is to express ourselves. So to do that, I'll give you guys some tools, just like I shared some tools last time for how we can be able to assert ourselves. So here's the Assert Yourself Toolbox. We have 10 tools, just like last time. The Assert Yourself Toolbox is something you can use as a reference point to kind of study and recognize, do I have all of these? You don't have to necessarily directly memorize your toolbox, but the idea is to build up these skills. And by building up certain skills that will allow you to healthily assert yourself, to become more assertive. To be assertive is to be healthy. It's to be real. It's to be true. It's to be actualized. So the first tool is use your voice. One of the hardest things when it comes to learning how to assert ourselves when we don't have a lot of practice, we feel like I don't even know the words to say. And that can make the task seem very scary. But what I'd like you to practice doing is just using the voice anyway, even though it doesn't come out right, you're still voicing something. This is how using the voice can sound without words. Ooh. If you heard me make those noises while we were talking, do you think you would stop? Yes, you would. You would stop. Why? Because I used my voice. So do you really need to have the perfect words in every situation? Nope. That's not the key to being assertive. You don't have to always have the perfect words. Just say something. Even if you say, I don't know, you're still giving pause to the situation and expressing a dissenting opinion or feeling, or at least the potential for one. It helps. Just interject utilizing your voice. It's proper to say, Rick, can I stop you there? Sure, Roman, what's the problem? I don't know. That's fine. Because you know what? You expressed yourself. In the end, you will sleep good knowing that you didn't just let Rick keep going and going and going down a path that wasn't going to be good for him or you. So use your voice. Tool number 2, build your vocabulary. Your vocabulary is like an arsenal of ammunition, not to harm, but to help. Understanding how to use words will help you to assert yourself. Sometimes the reason people hold back is because they feel like they don't know how to put their words together the way they want them to be said. Part of that is that you haven't practiced and you haven't built up your vocabulary. You build your vocabulary by listening to those who have larger vocabularies, whether that's on television or in educational pieces, and by reading, or listening to audiobooks. When you hear a word, you stop, you pause, and you look up the word. Build your vocabulary, build your vocabulary, build your vocabulary. How can you explain to someone that ultimately the trajectory that they are on is the problem and not the logistics? If you don't know what trajectory and logistics is, and you don't have those in your arsenal, then all you have is step 1, which is good. But definitely you want to have a vocabulary. Build your vocabulary. The average person can only name 5 emotions. Go ahead. Try yourself right now. How many emotions can you rattle off the top of your head? Being put on the spot, most people don't get past 5. They're like, happy, sad, mad, and they get stuck. But there is 200 or more words that you can use to describe your emotional state. I feel calm. I feel confident. I feel empowered. I feel, focused. I feel violated. I feel terrified, horrified, petrified. There are so many words, and each of them have a slightly different meaning, which is the beauty of having vocabulary, because that way we're able to express ourselves in a way that really touches the person and gets them in the right space. Because there's a difference between being able to say, hey, I felt scared, which is a basic word, and I felt cautious, which is different than scared. And when we understand how to utilize those words, then it can really convey the point a lot better to our audience. Our next tool is always pause before you speak. Give yourself 7 seconds. 5 to 7 seconds is an eternity when you really want to say something, but it'll allow the other person to reflect on what they're saying. And sometimes they'll backtrack for you. But more so for yourself, it allows you to speak up in your wise, intelligent mind instead of just speaking out of raw emotion, which bleeds into the next tool, which is to always remain calm. You never want to express yourself when you recognize that you're not calm. So to that end, if your voice is raised, you need to put a pin in the conversation and come back to it later. As soon as you notice, you get kind of like your voice gets up, just stop. Say, you know what? Let me take a break. Go take a break, take a walk, get some cool air, come back. You have to be calm to be assertive. Otherwise, you're aggressive. That's the difference. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Do you understand? That's the difference between assertive and aggressive. Because if you say, he needs to go to jail, that's aggressive. If you say, he needs to go to jail, that's assertive. Remain calm. So here's a nice tool. This next one, put it in question form. So sometimes, especially when we're around those who are our superiors at work or something like that, or even when we're talking to our subordinates, it can be very valuable to put something in question form in order to spare their feelings or to show respect. How can this look? So if you're talking to your superior and he mentions something and you don't want to just blatantly contradict him, you can put it in a question form, which will allow him to re-examine what it is that he said or what the mistake was that you're trying to point out in the first place. So let's say he says that this is on the 2011 referendum and you realize he means 2009, but you don't want to say, you mean 2009, because you don't want to be that person, right? So here's a tool you can use. You can put it in question form and you can just say, sir, when you mention the referendum, are we talking 2011 or 2009? Bam. It's so nice. It's so nice. Now you asked it in question, which makes him relook and say, 9, not 11. Thank you. Bam. It's good. He doesn't feel like you made him look dumb. You just asked the question. It's a very nice, softer way of being able to assert yourself. Also, if you're talking to a subordinate, so instead of saying, you didn't mop the floor, you can say, did you get a chance to mop the floor? Put it in question form. Very, very, very valuable. Even with your peers. Put things in question form when you can. One of the most directly valuable tools is to use the sandwich technique. The sandwich technique is to essentially, put your assertive statement between a sandwich of praise. So because we know that asserting ourselves is sometimes expressing criticism or a dissenting voice to what someone else might say, To use the sandwich technique, we're going to actually put it in between, put what we're saying in between two compliments. So you're going forward and you're saying, you want to tell them that they need to change their outfit, but you're first going to say, hey, I'm so glad you're here. You've done such a good job. So you got your compliments on top. Then you go in and say, that outfit may not be the perfect one for the show, but if you want, you can borrow mine. You present the solution, and then you hit them with the compliment at the end. Thank you so much for listening and allowing me to express myself, and so on and so forth. So you want to sandwich your assertive statement between two compliments, and that helps to soften the blow. So rather than just going at them right away with just one blunt statement, you're going to start off with compliments. So you may say, hey, I appreciate all the work you've been doing for me and how long you've been here. Thank you so much for that help. It's very valuable to me. I just wanted to point out to you that the shoes that you were wearing, they don't meet the company standard. I don't know if there's something else that you can do about that, putting it in question form, and then you allow them to express themselves. They're going to say whatever, blah, blah, I'll change my shoes. You say, you know what? I love that I get to work with you. Talking to you is always a pleasure. Bam, you end it with a compliment, and that really helps to soften the blow when you have to be assertive. Let me pull back the next tool you can use is sticking to the point. Now, this is really important when you're in a conversation or a discussion, because what can happen is you express your point and then they want to express their point. So you say to your husband or to your wife, hey, I feel like you always push all my clothes to one side of the closet and you take up all the space. That's you being assertive. But then your wife comes back with, my mother told me not to marry you when she saw you roll up with that Mustang. But I didn't make a big deal about the Mustang, did I? Now look, I have to deal with the Ford, and you got so many things happening with these cars. Look at my driveway. My driveway is covered in cars. Now you're like, oh my God, I tried to be assertive. It's blowing up in my face. This isn't working. What you have to do is remember to stick with your point. Since you were the first to raise the issue, we are now talking about your point. So you have to inform the person. What you're saying to me is valuable, but sticking to the point, the reason I started this conversation was to inform you that I feel like you push all my clothes to one side of the closet and then you take up all the space. And so now every time they bounce and say, you're coming at me about the closet, do you know how much I got to put up with the finances? You say, you know what? I feel like you have some good points that maybe we should talk about. But at the moment, the only reason I'm talking to you right now is just because I noticed that you're pushing all my clothes to one end of the closet. And every time they go off, you bring them back. And that's how you utilize the tool of sticking to the point. The next tool is picking your battles. It's really important to not always think that every moment and every opportunity is a time to be assertive. Sometimes it really is better just not to engage. When you recognize that you're dealing with a person who's completely toxic or majorly toxic, and what that would look like is ultimately they do not value your 50% or your 25% according to how many people are in the room, and they try to dominate. When you have someone who's a dominator, you just need to get away from them as soon as possible because that is toxic. You wouldn't hang around which this bleeds into the next point, which is avoiding toxic people. You wouldn't hang with a person who, whenever they had a conversation with you, they pulled into their garage and you guys sat in the car while the car was running. You would say, hey, man, turn off your car. And they say, no, I like keeping my car running while we have our conversations. Now let's continue. You would get out of there. Why? Because it's toxic. The fumes could kill you. Please understand it works the same on the energy realm level. When you have someone who's toxic like that, who's taking up all the air in the room, you do not want to be around them any more than necessary. So even if they're your family member, take the nearest and quickest exit, get out of there, hightail it out, and spend as little time with a person like that as possible. The final tool is recognize that there is no right and wrong. Your job is not to determine if someone's opinion is right or tell them that their opinion is wrong. When it comes to asserting yourself, you have to be able to embrace cognitive dissonance, which is the understanding that there can be opposing viewpoints that don't seem to harmonize with each other, but both can be true at the same time. So it's not about, is it right for me to do what's good for myself, or is it right for me to take care of my children? Which one is it? Which one is it? Which one is it? Guess what? Both are right. So recognize it's not right or wrong. It's at this moment, which is more appropriate? At this moment, which is better? So convert your thinking from a thinking of right and wrong to a thinking of better, worse, what's best in any given scenario. So hopefully you'll find these tools effective as you pursue your goal of becoming an assertive person. And to that end, if you need help with this, please reach out. I'd be happy to help you. You can email me or text me, and myself or someone else will be able to work with you to help you to build your skills as an assertive person. The website is mindfreed.org. All of the contact information is there. And please don't forget to check out YouTube for more videos and join us on Wednesday night for our group discussion. Thanks for being here, everyone. You have a good one.